about 10 o'clock, I get a call. She's like, I have to be intubated. And I just remember just hearing the fear in her voice. She's like, I don't know the next time I'm going to talk to you. I don't know when I'm going to be able to talk to you again. And just hearing that, I just tried to be so positive. I tried not to cry. And I was just like, it's going to be okay. And I just remember how scared she was that Blake would have to grow up without a mom. She thought she had mastitis, so she took antibiotics, a couple rounds, and it wasn't going away. So I'm at work one day, and I get a call. She's like, hey, the doctor's office called. They want us to come in. They said to bring you. We went to the doctor's office, and like I could sense something was wrong. Like the doctor's whole demeanor was off. He's just like, you have breast cancer. And it just crumbled her. She did radiation, had a double mastectomy. Something wasn't right, and she could sense it, and they found a spot. So she's like, I have to go do all of this again. It broke me because she felt so defeated. So we went to chemo that Thursday. I still remember the nurse coming back, and she just looked so defeated. And she's like, your levels are just so bad. I have to admit you. They gave her like a private room. So we're sitting in this room, and it's 7 o'clock at night. And at that point, she's like, you got to go home with the kids. So I'm like, all right. So I gave her a kiss, and I got home, gave the kids baths. They fell asleep, and about 10 o'clock, I get a call. It's like, I have to be intubated. I don't know when I'm going to be able to talk to you again. I would have stayed on there for hours just talking to her and just telling her how much she meant to me. And I remember standing around that bed. The nurse came in, and it's time. And they pulled the tube out, and she said within 15 seconds, she said she passed. I stood there in awe. I promised her at that bedside, I said, I'm not going to be perfect, but I promise you I will do everything for those kids.
Pete Rendina, welcome to the Roller Coaster Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me on here. I'm really excited. I'm a little nervous, but I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I appreciate you flying out from Michigan to come to this heat. It's a different kind of heat. So
I wore sweats, and I stepped off the plane, and I'm like, man, I should have worn shorts.
We're going to talk about a story, your story, a very personal story about your wife and her passing on April 17th of 2024.
Yeah.
Before we get there, I'd love for you to just share with the audience who she was, how you met. Like, tell us the story about you and Kylie.
So Kylie was like the most fun-loving person, just laid back, easygoing. It's funny because she was 5'11" and I'm 5'8", so like she would make fun of me all the time, like my short king. And my dad owns a bar back in Michigan that I worked at. So we had a mutual friend. One of her friends worked there, and she always says we always had an interaction because I'm like introverted, like socially awkward, and my dad made me bartend. So like I would be up there and like I don't want to be here conversing with people. And she said, she came up to the bar. I just looked at her. I said, went like that. And she goes, I never wanted to talk to you again. So from the start, like I was already set up for loss.
Horrible first
But
impression.
her friend Kennedy went to bat for me. So COVID hit, and I was like, all right, this is an opportunity that maybe I could get out of the bar life and do something different. So one of my friends did some media stuff. And have you ever seen Drunk History on Comedy Central?
Yeah.
So I came up with the idea, let's do it with classic movies, and we'll call it Ruining a Classic. So through COVID, I was just getting my friends drunk and having them tell classic movies. And her friend Kennedy came to do one, and she's like, can I bring my friends? And I was like, yeah. So she brought Kylie with her. And I was just like in awestruck of this girl. Like she was funny. She was pretty. Like I was just like, you got to do one. So I had her come on and do an episode. And she actually got so drunk that she slept in my bathroom. And I'm like, this girl's never going to talk to me again. But from there, we started texting, and like we were together probably every day. Like there was only like a day or two that, she would have her daughter, and she was very hesitant for me to meet her daughter at first. But I was like, I really want to meet Blake. And like the first moment I met this little girl, like I was just in love. I had a bachelor pad at that time, and my friends all laughed. They're like, you had a playroom at your house. You had toys all over the place after that. And I just fully like committed to this. Like, I love you. I love your child. And I think that's a big reason why she fell for me, is because she saw how much I loved Blake. And about 7 months in, I proposed, and she was a huge Office fan. So I'm horrible with surprises. So like, I don't even know how I pulled this off, but I had all her friends, her parents, like do an Office type like proposal. and like talk to the camera, all that stuff. And then we premiered it at the local theater. And like I had all our friends and family there. And she had no idea. Like I proposed and she's like, "How did you do this?" I'm like, "I don't know. I wanted to tell you so many times because like I'm just horrible at secrets." But from there, we started planning a wedding, and our son happened. It wasn't planned, but he was born August 6th, 2022. And in October of that year, she thought she had mastitis. So she took antibiotics, a couple rounds, and it wasn't going away. And she was getting nervous. And I'm like, "It's going to be okay. Like, like we're going to figure it out." So I'm at work one day and I get a call. She's like, "Hey, the doctor's office called. They want us to come in. They said to bring you." And so that in my head was like, that's got to be a bad sign. But I was just trying to stay positive, just keeping her spirits up. I'm like, "It's okay. I'll be there. I'm leaving right now." So I picked her up. We went to the doctor's office, and it's just one of those things that like you walk in there and you can just sense it. And like I could sense something was wrong. Like the doctor's whole demeanor was off. And he's like, "Hey," had no bedside manner. He's just like, "You have breast cancer." And it just crumbled her. And like it hit me, but I was like numb. Like it was almost like one of those things like you're just looking from the outside in.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, this can't be real. Like this can't be, like our life is so great. Like we're having a wedding, we have a child, we have 2 kids basically. And I just held her and we went home that night, and her dad came over, her mom, her friends, and through the tears, she just looked at me and she's like, "It's going to be okay." And like we went to the doctor the next day, got the whole plan from Henry Ford, what the chemo treatments were going to be, what everything was going to, how it was all going to play out. And she was just like stone faced. She's like, "All right, like we're going to do this." And like I have to give it to my business partner, Devin. Like he allowed me to go to every doctor appointment, every chemo treatment. I was there 5-6 hours. I was there by her side through everything. And I just made sure that she felt comfortable when she started losing her hair. Like I always told her, like, "You look beautiful. Like it's great. Like you're doing so good. I'm so proud of you." Like just trying to hit her with all positive. And there was hard days. And I think at one point she didn't think that I like really cared. And I had like a breakdown. Like I just broke down. I'm just like, I'm scared of losing you. Like I'm trying to hold it together. And she just looked at me and she's like, "Now I feel like you truly care." And I'm like, I was just trying to be that rock. I didn't want to, seem weak. And then if I'm weak, you're going to fall apart. So I was just trying to keep it all together for you. But it was like a moment that we just both kind of cried and looked at each other like, "All right, we got this now." So through all of that, she went into remission. She did radiation, had a double mastectomy the day after our wedding. Actually, we got married. Or not the day, the week after our wedding. We got married May 20th of 2024. Or 2023, I'm sorry. And it was just like that fairy tale ending. Like, everything's gone. Like we're doing great. We went on our honeymoon. We had a blast. And we bought a new house. We lived with my parents for like 6 months, and I think everybody was getting a little bit annoyed with each other, but we ended up moving around the corner from my parents, which now is a blessing. But she wanted to move closer to work. And that's the one thing I didn't say is through the whole ordeal, she worked the whole time. Like I was like, "You can stay home. Like you don't have to go to work." Like she still wanted to go back to work. She was driving 45 minutes to work. She worked for a medical company that, people coming from surgery or rehabilitation, she would look at background checks and just place them at their facilities to make sure that they were okay to go there. And I'm just like, "You can just work from home." And she would just look at me and she's just like, "I got to do this." Like, and she was just the strongest person that I just thinking about it, I just still can't believe that she did that. But after we bought our house, we decorated for Halloween. We decorated for Christmas. She always laughed at me because I'm like a little kid. Like I decorate for Christmas on November 1st because I just got to get all the Christmas in that I can. But after that first Christmas, something wasn't right, and she could sense it. And it was like they had to keep doing scans because that's the thing with like people that go through cancer. It's always in the back of their mind. And it's always something that they have to worry about, whether they get a good scan, they're good for 3 months, and then they got to go back and get another scan. And they found a spot and it worried her. And they were like, it might be a mucous membrane. It might be this, that. So she was worried, but at the same time, just, she tried to be strong. And then the doctor was concerned about it. So he's like, I want you to come in. We want to test it. He got a whole round of chemo going. So she's like, I have to go do all of this again. And it broke me because she felt so defeated. She just went through all of this and it was like she had some breathing room and then it just hit her again. And it just completely, like, I don't know, like this time around, it was just so much harder for her. She couldn't breathe good because her lungs were so just affected by it. And like we planned a trip for my birthday in March to see my sister and her fiance. They live in Nashville now, but they were like, come out. Like my brother-in-law, Amani, he plays for the Titans now, but he was playing with the Cowboys at that time. And he's like, I got a week off. Like we'll go out, we'll have fun. And I was like, I'm just worried about her, her breathing's not the greatest. And she was just like, I want to go have fun. Like I just wanted her to have some normalcy. So we planned the trip. We went, like everywhere we went, Amani planned it out so that like the bars we would go to, like we could take an elevator up. Like he made sure everything was accommodated. And like he even got into it with one of the bouncers. It's like, what do you need the elevator for? He's like, she has cancer. Like he was getting into it. And I'm like, man, seeing you go to bat for my wife, like I can only imagine what you're going to do for my sister. So it was cool to see that. But just coming back from that, like I could just tell it took a lot out of her. Like she was struggling to breathe. I ended up taking her to the hospital and they admitted her for 8 days. And like it was just killing her because she was away from the kids. They both, missed their mom. I mean, Enzo was 1.5 at that point. So I was, handling a lot of stuff, but at the same time, I didn't mind it. I just wanted to make sure that when she got home, like I cooked dinner, I gave the kids baths, like I took care of all this stuff. And it wasn't anything like I was exhausted. I was just like, you know what, this is what I'm here to do. And I'm your husband. I'm going to make sure I do all these things. And was I perfect? No. I'm going to make tons of mistakes probably, but I just wanted to make sure that things were easy for her when she got home from work. And after her hospital stay, she came home. She was on oxygen. We just thought, antibiotics would run its course with whatever she had in her lungs, and it just wasn't getting better. It was just like, it was almost like they had to keep upping the oxygen. She was moving really slow. Like it would take her probably to go from me to that chair over there. It would take her, 10, 15 minutes because she just could not breathe well. And I'm like, we got to go back. She's like, no, if I don't do the chemo, it's not going to get better. I'm like, well, we'll go to chemo. So we went to chemo that Thursday. And I still remember the nurse coming back and she just looked so defeated because she knew she wanted to do it. And she's like, your levels are just so bad. I have to admit you, like I have to call an ambulance. And so they admitted her to Henry Ford, Detroit. We went up there and I still remember walking in, like it's a madhouse. Like there's just people in beds in the hallways and she's just coming through and she just does not want to be here. But because she was compromised, they gave her like a private room. So we're sitting in this room and, it's 7:00 at night and we've seen one like nurse, they gave her the high flow oxygen. They're like, we're going to see how this goes. And at that point, she's like, you got to go home with the kids. Like they just need somebody there with them. So I'm like, all right. So I gave her a kiss. Her dad came in, stayed with her. And I got home, gave the kids baths, laid them down. We laid in my bed. They fell asleep. And about 10:00, I get a call. She's like, I have to be intubated. And I just remember just hearing the fear in her voice. She's like, I don't know the next time I'm going to talk to you. I don't know when I'm going to be able to talk to you again. And just hearing that, I just tried to be so positive. I tried not to cry. And I was just like, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. And I mean, if I could have, I would have stayed on that phone forever. I would have stayed on there for hours just talking to her and just telling her how much she meant to me. And I hung up that phone and I drove back and forth from Detroit for 5 days. And it was like, we'd get a team of doctors. And it was almost like they're treating her like a guinea pig, you know? What do you think? What do you think? And I get it, you know, they're residents and they're trying to figure this stuff out. But when somebody you love, like, you just look at it like, just tell it to me straight. And I just remember the Sunday before, me and her dad are in there, and this doctor had no bedside manner at all. He just looked at us and he's like, you know, there's a very strong possibility that she could pass away right now. And I just remember me and Bill just crying for 2 hours. Like, I was at one side of her bed, he's at one side of her bed. He came over and comforted me. I came over and comforted him. And we were just both just at a loss for words. I don't think we said a word. We just cried. And I remember going home that night, and I called the deacon from my parents' church, and I talked to him. And he's like, you know, it's just, we got to leave it in God's hands. And I've always been a gratitude guy. I've written in a gratitude journal my whole life. And I told him, I said, you know, I'm trying to be grateful even in the difficult times. I'm trying to be grateful knowing whatever happens, I trust God, but I really want her to pull through. And that was the first time I made a video on my phone. I said, I'm looking for prayers. I don't normally do this kind of stuff. You know, I just want you guys to pray for my wife. And I went up there the next day, and it seemed like a good day. And then it was like it dipped. And the doctors just said, you know, her body's not excreting CO2 anymore. And what's going to happen is her body's going to fill with CO2 and she could go in cardiac arrest. And me and Bill were just like, we don't want her to go through that. And I just remember her mom was just so distraught. She's like, is there anything else we can try? Like, she tried to hold on to anything. She's like, I want to turn over every stone, do whatever we can. And it was just like, there's nothing else we can do. So I literally had to call every single one of her friends, because she just had such a huge friend group. She just touched so many lives. And I had to tell each one of them, I'm like, you have to get here. Like, this is it. And I remember standing around that bed with, you know, there's probably 8 or 9 girls, her sister, her brother, her mom, her dad, her stepmom, her stepdad, just telling her how much we love her. And her one friend said, she probably hates this because she just loved her privacy, and she didn't want everybody making a big deal about her. And the nurse came in, and it's time. And they pulled the tube out, and she said within 15 seconds, she said she passed. And I was just, I had no words. I stood there in awe. And I was just like, what are we going to tell Blake? Like, she was always so scared that her mom wasn't going to be there. And I texted Drew, Blake's dad. I said, Kylie passed away. He said, I know. Blake told me. And I just remember how scared she was that Blake would have to grow up without a mom. And I just knew that was the first visit she had to do. And I just knew that she was with God, and that she was just out of pain. As hard as it was and as much as it hurt, I promised her at that bedside, I said, I'm not going to be perfect, but I promise you I'll do everything for those kids. I'll do everything to make sure they stay together. I'll be the best dad I can be. And I do everything for my kids right now. Me and Blake's dad have a great relationship. We share time with them. They even take Enzo from time to time. But my whole life is devoted to those kids, and faith is the only thing that has really gotten me through this whole situation. Sorry, I'm just blubbering over here.
Oh, thanks, man. I appreciate you sharing that. It's an incredibly difficult story. I mean, it seems like the days leading up to it were just seemingly normal days. And it seems like it happened relatively quickly.
It was, so Detroit, where we live, is about 45 minutes away. So I would have to drive, I drove up there. I stayed a couple nights, but, her dad wanted to stay, her mom wanted to stay. So, we all rotated. You could only have one person stay in there. And, I'd be driving up there, and it was like, hey, we got good news. So, I'm excited driving up there. And then before I leave, it's like, her levels are dropping. So then I'm driving home, and I'm just, I'm calling my mom, or I'll call my dad, or calling whoever, just venting, and just like, I don't know what I'm going to do. Like, I'm scared. I'm nervous. I'm trying to keep positive, but it's just one of those things that unless you're in it, you just don't understand how many different emotions you go through.
Yeah. What is it like marrying somebody who you know is probably going to die? Like, is that, what's going through your mind? Because when I see men do this, dude, I'm just like, bro, you're amazing. Like, but what's that like being in that position?
It's one of those things that you try not to think about. I think, after she went into remission, it was almost like my mind completely deleted that out. Like,
It
obviously,
wasn't an
it
outcome.
was just
Yeah.
like, all right, like we got our happy ending, like everything's gonna be great. And I think that moment that it came back, it was just it didn't become real until those last 5 days when she was intubated. It was like, she's gonna get through this. Like, she always gets through this. Like, God, you saw me through everything. Like, you're gonna see me through this. And it's not until it hit me that she was gonna be gone that I was just my mind went a million different directions. I'm like, how am I gonna be a single dad raising 2 kids? Like, what am I gonna tell these kids, as they're growing up? Like, how am I gonna handle all this stuff? And I have been blessed with so much support. My mom watches my kids. Kylie's mom watches the kids. My father-in-law, he comes down. He lives about 40 minutes away. He comes down and stays the night with us every other weekend or week. But like I said, Blake's dad and his fiance, take Enzo for me, give me a break here and there. I am blessed in a terrible situation. I have the best thing that I could ask for, and it's truly God allowing me and all these people to just work together through something that is so traumatic.
Yeah. It's, man, the kids part of the equation is such a difficult situation. We went through a traumatic experience where my wife was pronounced dead a few years ago, and then ended up living through it. And so all those same kind of emotions that you had, I had. And actually, our family went through something very traumatic 2 days ago. You see our neighborhood here; it's really tight. There's only 8 homes in this neighborhood, and our a good friend of mine who's our age just committed suicide.
Oh my gosh.
And he has 8 kids.
Oh my gosh.
And it's hard. First, it's hard to understand that, what he must have been going through. Nobody had there's no signs, nobody knew. But you just immediately, as a parent, as a dad, you think about those kids, and you just go, man, like, their life is never going to be the same. Right. And so you with Blake and Enzo, it's like their lives they're not going to be the same because she's not with us,
No, and I'm sorry that, you had to experience that. Mental health is a difficult thing. And, it's one thing that in those moments of lowness, I had a moment where I sat in the garage and I just was so distraught. And I was just like, I could never do this to the kids. I sat there and talked to God, and I'm just like, God, I don't understand. I just want, this pain taken away. And I was like, I got to get out of here. And I drove to my office, and, I'm scrolling on my phone, and I scroll through TikTok, and it's all faith-based stuff. I'm just trying to find something to just ease my mind. And it's crazy how God speaks to us exactly how we need to be spoken to in those moments. Because I scroll on a video from The Chosen, the show, and season 4, Thomas goes through losing his wife. And I just related to it so much. But it's that moment where he just looks at Jesus after he rose Lazarus, and he's like, why him and not her, And I just felt that so much. And the crazy thing is that the backing track was an acoustic version of Iris by the Goo Goo Dolls. So I'm just like sobbing.
Oh, that's amazing.
And like, it's one of the songs my wife walked down the aisle to. So I'm just like, in my mind, I'm like, this is exactly what I needed. But just hearing, Jonathan Romy, he's like, as Jesus, I'm like, this is Jesus basically speaking to me. He's like, I know it can be crushing. I know it's hard, the things that I and the Father allow, but I just want you to stay with me. And just hearing those words, I'm just like, God, I'm going to stay with you. And that's really something I've really devoted my life to.
That's beautiful. Did you find any unexpected joy or beauty through this process and even during some of the harder times as she's fighting this battle with cancer?
It's, it's grief is the most difficult thing even to explain, because everybody experiences it differently.
Yeah.
Everybody goes through it differently. They handle it differently. And for me, it is, like waves where you're up and down. It's like a roller coaster, like you say. Um, but there's those high moments where you feel like you're happy, and then you almost get guilty because I shouldn't feel this way. I shouldn't be happy
Yeah.
right now because they're not here. Um, but there are moments where I know, like, God's allowing her to send me signs. It's funny, the day after she passed away, there's a package for her on the counter. I sat it there for her to open, and I'm like, well, she's not gonna open it. So I open it, and it's this T-shirt, and it's like this TikTok trend where like girlfriends and wives get their boyfriends or husbands shirts, and it has their name, and then it has like 6 photos of them, and she picked the most ridiculous photos because that was just her sense of humor. And I just laughed. I texted her friend, and I was like, she goes, that's your first sign from her. And I framed it in like one of those jersey frames, and I have it up on my wall, like at the house, like a Tom Brady jersey just
That's
hanging on my
amazing.
wall. Yeah. So
That's beautiful. Have you had any other experiences or interactions with her since she passed?
I've had a couple dreams where I've seen her, but nothing like to the extent like her dad kept her phone in service, so I still text her like updates about the kids or just, hey, I love you. Like I have her phone sitting on the counter, so if I notice it's running low on battery, I'll just charge it. And but I just feel like you see like cardinals or you see butterflies and things of that nature. We were at my sister's wedding. She had a pool party with all her friends, and we're sitting there, and it's funny, my brother's actually dating one of Kylie's best friends now. And she saw a butterfly. She goes, there's Kylie. She goes, she wasn't going to miss this. And we always just, anytime we see anything like that, like, there's mom. I tell the kids, like, there's a cardinal, there's mom. And that's the hard thing with the kids is, Enzo was so young. He didn't really understand. And now he's starting to kind of notice it a little bit. We talk about mom, and he's like, where's mom? We tell him that she's in heaven. He's like, can we go there? Or when's she coming home? Or things like that. And I think with him, the hardest thing was just being a baby. If, people were coming over to comfort us as she's gone. And if a female came downstairs, he would always look.
Is that
like
her?
He was looking for her to come home. Whereas with Blake, it's a different kind of, explanation. She's like, she goes through phases where, she's good. And then it's like, why did God have to take my mom? Or why is God so mean? Or why did he do this or that? And I always tell her, we don't understand. She's like, I know we don't understand. And I'm like, I even myself, like, we don't understand why God allows these things or why these things happen. We just have to have faith. And, we pray in the car every day. I tell them all the time, I'm like, we're going to pray in the good, pray in the bad. So if we're late for school and they're in the back screaming, I'm in the front, Father God, thank you for this day. And they're like, we don't want to pray. Like, I'm just like, we're going to keep doing this. And it's become a routine, and it's part of our lives. And they both, Enzo's starting to talk about faith, and Blake really, she reads her Bible, she prays. It's just one of those things that I really instill in them, that, the way that we're going to see mom again is with our faith.
Yeah. One of the things I find to be, I think, essential in grieving any traumatic experience is community and friends and family. What role did community play in your journey?
Community was big. Like I said, we have a great support system, and through that whole ordeal, my mom or Kylie's mom, we're watching the kids so we could go to chemo treatments or go to doctor's visits. My business partner, like I said, let me to go to everything. He handled a big part of our business. Her friends would always want to come and comfort her and just make sure, they were around, just being uplifting, just trying to keep some kind of normalcy. Whereas, we're not looking at it as she's going through a cancer battle. It's just, hey, we went to an appointment and now we're right back to normal life. So just having a great support system really helped in that whole situation before and after.
Yeah. Is there any moments that you can recall with Kylie in sort of her last few weeks of life that really stand out to you as core memories that you'll never forget?
Yeah. So she couldn't, at the end, she couldn't breathe real well. So, I mean, her mom, her dad, we had, people staying with us, helping me with the kids and helping me with her. And, she couldn't do a lot. And I remember, we had one of those Tempur-Pedic beds where you can move it up and down and stuff like that. And she just could not get comfortable one night. And I just remember constantly changing position, and I remember being so tired, like just keep falling asleep, but I was just like, I just want to make her as comfortable as possible. So I'd wake up out of a dead sleep and just try and move her. Hey, lay your head on my shoulder, let's move the bed back, let's lay this way, let's lay that way. And it was just one of those things that she could tell that I was exhausted and just trying really hard, and she was just like, thank you for everything that you're doing for me. And it's just looking back on it, like I tried so hard to be there for her, be that rock for her. And like I said, I wasn't perfect. I messed up. I probably, did this wrong or that wrong, but it's just I just look back on it, and I hope that she's looking down proud of me, where I'm at now.
Yeah, do you think she is?
I think so. You know, I like I said, I really hold on to my faith. I share my faith constantly on Facebook. Um, you know, it's one of those things when you start sharing your faith publicly, people will come out of the woodwork and try and slander your name. And I don't have the greatest past. I will be completely open about that. I was, in college and high school, and after working in a bar, I was womanizing. I was doing all kinds of things that I, shouldn't have been doing, drinking. And her coming into my life was the greatest blessing. I just feel like that was God giving me another chance, basically. Like, hey, you can change this all. And we even went through a situation where, our relationship almost, was tested, and I had to really earn her trust back. And I think through everything that we went through, I think I did the best that I could to prove that. And like I said, the spiritual attacks, they just come. And
Yeah.
it's one of those things that, you get to a point and you're like, people can say whatever they want. I know what's true. God knows what's true. I'm going to keep, doing what I'm doing.
Yeah. Yeah. How hard is it, right? When you go from, party animal, drinking, drugs, women, whatever else is involved there, and your friend circle is all doing the same stuff, and you're all dragging each other down day in and day out, right? Like, how hard is it to cut ties with those people? And then also, how quickly do you realize, like, these are not real friends once you do that?
It's one of those things, I think, when you get in a relationship, you do kind of drift away from those things. But at the same time, those demons still sit inside of you. So you have to really get in the word, get in your prayer life, and really overcome those things. And there's things that I still need to overcome, that still struggle with. But those lifestyles always try to show themselves again, and always try to come back, and always try to bring you down to the point of, hey, maybe you need to get away from this faith life. Maybe you need to get away. I still have a lot of great friends, but for the most part, like, I keep to myself a lot. I take care of my kids. Like, I'm a homebody. I'm a simple guy. Like, I love just hanging out at home, watching movies with the kids, doing fun stuff. Like I said, I'm a big kid. I love decorating for the holidays. I do all kinds of stuff with the kids for the holidays. So it's just, those are the things I'm focused on now.
That's beautiful. What do you want people to remember about Kylie?
Just how amazing she was. I mean, she touched so many lives, and she didn't even realize it. She was just so genuine and just so funny, like naturally just funny. Like, we both cracked each other up, and she'd always say, "You're so stupid." But I love saying like things to make her laugh, especially through like her, battle. I would just say dumb things, and she's like, "Gosh, you're so stupid." But I miss her saying that. But I just really want people to know how, she would light up a room. Like, we go to things with, like, I still go to things with her friend group, and it's like you can really sense a piece missing. Like, it's just so different.
Yeah. if you could talk to her, directly just for a few minutes, what would you say?
I'd tell her how much I miss her and how much I love her, and just probably talk about the kids the whole time and tell her everything that they're doing, everything, how much they miss her. And just, I would just hope that she's, like I said, proud of me for, everything that I'm doing now. And hopefully she'll call me stupid one more time.
That's beautiful. Talk to me about this book. So you wrote a book, it's called Manifesting Through Faith. What is sort of the premise or the nature of this book, and what drove you or inspired you to write it?
So mindset's always been something that I have studied. I grew up wrestling, as if you couldn't tell, I'm smaller guy, so football and basketball were out. So me and my brother grew up wrestling. He went to Cornell. I ended up going to U of M to wrestle, and
Michigan.
Yeah,
isn't that like a top?
Yeah, I never. So I was on the team. I never started. The guy that was
ahead of me, legit.
But I was on the team. Yes.
Yeah.
But the guy ahead of me was a 2-time national champ. So I just, I went to practice.
You let him toss you around.
I got to party a lot. Let's just say that, Yeah. But yeah. So wrestling's a very mental sport. So with that, we always looked at, we used to watch The Secret a lot, the law of attraction, the manifestation process, and they always equate it back to like the universe. And even at a young age, I always looked at it like that's just God. And I always thought, it'd be cool if somebody wrote a book from that perspective. And I'm sure there are other ones, but I was like, I never seen one. So through her battle, I was like, I really want to kind of dive into this. And I really started looking at scripture. And a lot of the practices are backed up in the Bible. And I use a lot of Bible verses to back up the teachings. But it's just, there's so many different dynamics to it, from our emotions, our language, how we speak about ourselves, our subconscious mind. I go into, each chapter goes into different things. And the way they explain it is almost like a genie, where you can get whatever you want. And how I explain it is your desires are going to align with God's desires, so that your life is going to play out exactly how God sees it. And it's not going to be, hey, I want $1 million or I want a Ferrari. And I'm not saying you can't have those things or, be a good person and have those things. You're going to see how life truly aligns with God.
Who do you think is a great example of manifestation?
Well, I'd say one of the greatest mindsets that I could think off the top of my head is Kyle Dake. He is, so in the wrestling world, he won 4 national titles at 4 different weight classes. He's the only guy ever in wrestling to do that. And if you talk to this guy, like how he speaks about himself, he's so confident. He is just so positive about his performance, and he just has such a strong mind that you're like, this guy is just like, he has it all figured out. And I mean, he's friends with my brother, and he stayed at our house before, and just like talking to him, like you see like how his mind works. Like he's the most competitive guy. Like we were playing spike ball in the yard, and I was on his team. He's like, "Come on, Rendina," and I'm like, "I'm sorry, Kyle. Like, we're not gonna lose." Like we won every game, and he's just like, that's his competitive edge. But you can tell that his mind just works that way, where he's like, "I'm gonna win." Like they did an interview with him on ESPN, and he won 3 national titles. He had the trophies in his room, and he goes, "This is where the 4th one's gonna go," and like. That's his mind. That's his way of thinking. Like it already happened. And that's kind of how you have to approach it, because, in the Bible, God says, whatever it is you ask for in prayer, believe that you already have it and it will be yours. And that is essentially how, I approach this whole book.
I love that. There's a framework that, so I started this brand called Levels a few years ago, and it's to help men level up in the areas of their life that matter, right? So health and spirituality and finance and relationships and connection and these sort of things. And when we do our men's retreats, the very first thing we do is an exercise called the I am statement.
Okay.
And the inner critic, right? And so the inner critic is this thing that's inside of all of us that says, you're not enough, you're ugly, you're fat, you're not successful, you're a bad husband, you're whatever, right? And those thoughts and those words really do come true, right?
Yeah.
So it's like if you tell yourself that, eventually you start to believe it, and you can have negative manifestations happen. And I think most people probably have more negative manifestations than positive, right? So then I take them through an exercise where we have them write down their I am statement, right? And so there's psychology that says saying the words I am and then following it up with whatever you want to be, or whatever you are, is a way to solidify, who you are as a being, right?
Yeah.
Like at your core. And so, if it's okay, I'd love to read you mine.
Yeah, I would love that.
And, even challenge you, if you haven't done this yet, to do it, because I'm a huge believer in exactly what you're talking about. I think words are incredibly powerful. And I think if you pair it with faith and with God's will, they become, immeasurably powerful.
Yeah.
So I am a child of God with potential beyond human imagination, a father of 4 sacred children, and a husband to a loving wife. I am a machine. My habits and routines can't be broken. I am a man of my word. I do what I say I'm going to do. I am a doer. Watch my feet, not my lips. I am a long game player, not distracted by instant gratification. I am an acceptor of people. My ability to judge does not exist. I lift others and always bring good energy. I don't take things personally because I know who I am, full of love for my fellow man, even tempered because I stay present. I am a calm and kind man, but not to be taken lightly. My sword is sheathed and will only be used if absolutely necessary, called to change the lives of millions of men through my example.
Man.
So some of these things are true today. Some of these things are certainly aspirational. These are things that I want to obtain. And I think the more that it's a good reminder, me reading this, because I think in a perfect world, I would say this out loud every day.
Yeah.
And it would become a part of my being until I've, sort of perfected that list. Right.
And that's such a big part of it is looking at and saying things in the present tense, like you already have it. And that's a lot of times how I approach my gratitude journal. You look at my gratitude journal now and it's completely different than it was. I've done it for about 9 years now, and I've probably filled up 6-7 notebooks.
Like every day.
Yeah, every day I write. So every day I write about 6 things that I'm grateful for. And, it used to be like, I want to be, a famous screenwriter, I want to, this or that, I want $1 million. Yeah. And now the 6 things I write every day are, thank you, God, for bringing Kylie into my life. Thank you, God, for protecting and loving Blake and Enzo. Thank you, God, for your love and forgiveness. Thank you, God, for making me one of the greatest writers ever. And thank you, God, for allowing me to write full time for a living. Mm. And that's every day I write that now. And it's simple, but it's just one of those things that I feel like that's where I'm aligning with God, where I don't need, big house. And, I'm not saying it's bad, but I'm just saying I'm just a simple guy. And that's where my desires align with God. And, your desires are going to align with God differently. It's just everybody is different.
Yeah, I love it. There's a lot of people out there that are dealing with some really difficult things. It could be, it could be illness of themselves. It could be, severe illness or disease of a loved one. It could be the recent passing of a loved one. It could be, I lost my job yesterday. It could be any of these things, right? Mm-hmm. If you could just share one lesson or piece of wisdom or advice from your experience with those out there that are suffering, that are going through it, what would you share? And feel free to address them in your camera.
Yeah. Life's hard. And the thing is it's not that if we suffer, it's when tribulation comes. There's a verse. I'm not very well versed in the numbers and the chapters and things of that nature, but it says when tribulations happen, trust in God. He knows these things are going to come because we live in a broken world. But the biggest thing is creating that relationship with him. And I can tell you, it's not about religion. It's not about denomination. It's not about these things. It's about accepting Jesus into your heart and truly having a strong relationship with God. Going to him with an honest heart is one of the hardest things and the easiest things that we can do, because we do want to tell him exactly how we're feeling, but we also want to sugarcoat it at times. We also want to, hide things from him, and there's nothing we can hide. And when I started going to him with an honest heart and telling him exactly how I'm feeling, I've gotten angry with him. I've yelled. I've gotten sad. I've gotten happy. I'm grateful. I'm miserable. I'm this, I'm that. But being honest with him is what he wants. He doesn't want us to sugarcoat our prayers. He wants us to come to him, let him know how we're feeling. And I'm telling you, the more you do that, the more you just start to trust that relationship and trust God in all the areas of your life.
Love it. Thank you for coming on the show.
Oh man, I appreciate you having me on. This is great.
Okay.